the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Greeny. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. What we have for you today, plenty of reaction to the Little League World Series news that broke during our show, including the reaction of our Karl Ravech. Alex Rodriguez apologizes, but will it matter? Kevin Costner in our studio, and what was the greatest upset ever in sports?
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
So glad you've chosen to start your day with us on a day that, among other things, is the 25th anniversary of a day, Mike, that we will remember forever. If you are old enough to remember what happened 25 years ago today, February 11th of the year 1990, when Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson, you heard a little clip of it there in the open. That is genuinely one of those moments as a sports fan that you sat there and said, There's no way, we just had one. We just had one. The interception that basically ended the Super Bowl this year.
No way that just happened.
No way that just happened.
That's the
it
moment.
wasn't an upset of the magnitude of Tyson Douglas. Tyson Douglas was a colossal upset. But it was also one of those, there's no way in the world that just happened.
Right.
I need to see that again to believe it just happened. And that is what that fight was that night. 25, I can't believe I'm saying
I
this.
know.
25 years ago tonight.
25 years ago. I mean, that's it's incredible. It's incredible, but that's exactly what the thought process was. I can't believe that just happened. The 37-0 Mike Tyson with 33 knockouts going against a 24, I think 29-4-1 Buster Douglas. Tyson actually knocked Douglas down in the 8th round, but then when Tyson got knocked down, and that was just one of the most stunning things. I remember saying, there's no way he's on the canvas right now. There's no way this is happening.
Grasping for his mouthpiece, which had been knocked out.
I mean,
the thing about Tyson that you don't know if you don't remember is that he had an invincibility about him that he really looked like he was going to be one of the great heavyweight champions of all time. And our old friend Brian Kenny, who is as good on boxing as anybody I know, now works at the MLB Network and also Showtime. He's going to join us a little later this morning. I'm looking forward to talking to Brian because you got to go back in time. You got to go back to a time when Mike Tyson first burst on the scene, where he first annihilated Michael Spinks and everybody else who got in his way. And Mike Tyson really looked like he was on his way to being one of the great heavyweight champions of all time. He was untouchable, he was unstoppable, and he was fighting a tomato can in Tokyo. And Buster Douglas knocks him out when you had never seen Mike Tyson hurt. It was like a Rocky movie. He's hurt, he bleeds. 25 years later, it remains one of the most stunning things I've ever seen. I remember exactly where I was sitting when I watched it happen.
Well, and you used the word invincible, and that was a good word. But I think watching Tyson, I think everybody used the word scary. He was must see. He was dominating the heavyweight class, but you still had to sit in front of the television because A, you knew he was going to win, but B, you wondered, in all honesty, was he going to kill the guy he was fighting?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how mean looking that. I mean, he was literally that guy that you were like, wow. But if you were in the room with him, you kind of backed away. I mean, people were scared of him. I mean, you go over his story and his upbringing, and how he learned to fight and who helped him fight with Customato and where it went from there, but where it started and the hunger and just the attitude. I mean, he was a scary dude. He'd stand there with his gloves up at the beginning of the fight, and the bell would ring, and he would just go.
He'd walk out there wearing a towel with a hole cut in the middle of it.
A towel, and before the bell, hands were up by the face, bell would ring, he'd go forward, and you were waiting for the mayhem to start.
The Michael Spinks fight is the one that I remember the most because that was the fight that was supposed to be a great fight.
Yes.
That's where the legendary expression, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, came from. Michael Spinks had a plan. And about 15 seconds into that fight, Michael Spinks looked like his plan was get me out of this ring as fast as I could, and he didn't get out of the first round.
Eyes were watering and just got
Buster Douglas was 42-1 in that fight.
42-1.
42-1. Against Tyson on that night. So it gives us a chance this morning to have a little fun with this, and we'll take yours all morning long on Twitter at Mike and Mike, and we'll use the hashtag greatest upset, and we'll take them on Twitter as well. On Chatter as well. Chatter is Twitter for your radio. 740-535-MIKE. That's 740-535-6453. What's the greatest upset you can ever remember? There's the legendary upsets. The term upset actually comes from a horse a horse that won a race that wasn't supposed to, and the horse was named Upset. And that's where the term upset comes from. What is the greatest upset that you can ever remember? Now, most people are going to point to the Miracle on Ice.
That one is the top of the list of a lot of things, from greatest call to greatest upset to
it also had
greatest
more
USA
meaning
win.
to people. The magnitude of the upset was colossal. It also, because of the specter of the state of the world that we were living in at the time, it happened in the United States. It was an American team against the Soviet team. I think that also elevates
there's no doubt about it. A couple weeks earlier, we got drilled by him. I mean, drilled by him in an exhibition.
I agree with you. My point is, if the major superpower at that time in hockey had been Switzerland, and we had beaten Switzerland,
I'm with you.
It wouldn't be what it was.
I'm just adding to it everything that was involved.
Nothing's going to top that.
No,
I mean, when you layer in everything that was going on that night, nothing's going to top that.
Everything else goes to number two.
Everything is fighting for number two, but Tyson fighting being the accurate term certainly gets put into that discussion. What an unbelievable night that was. With Jon Stewart announcing on The Daily Show that he is going to be resigning this year, and that guy's done an unbelievable job with that show. I've never met Jon Stewart. I respect him a lot. The one thing that I will always think of when I think of Jon Stewart, and this is just purely me, is that when he first started, people used to tell me that they thought that I looked like him. So I put up on Twitter just a couple of minutes ago, someone sent me a picture on Twitter of Jon Stewart the first time he was on The Daily Show, and I had a picture that someone had sent me years later, or a couple of years ago, of the first time I was on SportsCenter, and they were right around the same time. And so I put them up on Twitter. They're at ESPN Greeny on Twitter right now. We've got them up on TV. Do you tell me, do we look alike?
Forgetting even that, what is that look on your face?
Well, someone just caught a screen grab of me in the middle of anchoring. It's not the most flattering shot.
Check this out. It looks like you're drunk. I mean, seriously, this is your first broadcast?
I was drunk.
Well, you were. That's true. Wow.
That was the first time I anchored SportsCenter.
Here's the thing. When you look at the picture, the first thing you're going to do is zero in on Greeny's face. You're going to say, what the hell kind of look is that? And then you're
catching me mid-word.
Whatever.
Right? I mean, I'm not just looking at the camera going,
yeah, well, you know what?
That is me in the middle of saying something.
We don't know that. And then we're going to say that about you, with a doofus look on your face. But then we're going to pan out, and we are going to look over, and there is a similarity with you and Jon Stewart, yes.
People used to tell me all the time they thought I looked like Jon Stewart. So someone sent me that picture of Jon Stewart last night saying, hey, Greeny, this looks like you. It was the first night of The Daily Show. So I had Erica I don't know how to do that thing where you put two pictures together into one picture.
Well, you don't look at me.
So Erica did.
I just asked someone in my family to do it as well.
So we put them together. So we've got that up on Twitter. It's at ESPN Greeny. And I just asked the question, do we look alike or not?
You guys, not that particular look, but yes, you guys do.
Well, that's not a great, again, that face I'm making, I don't have another picture of me from that night. If anyone at ESPN has another picture of me from that day.
Here's the thing. I don't want another picture. I want that picture.
I do have like a Jeff Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemont High kind of a look about me.
You do. You look like you need some pizza.
I'm anchoring a baseball highlight, and I'm like, aloha, Mr. Hand. But I mean, that's just mid-word.
But you do look alike.
But we do look alike.
You look alike with a guy who pulled a little shocker here and is walking away from The Daily Show, started in 1999, and used the word retirement. And not I'm on to, a different show. It's retirement. Now,
I was surprised when Letterman stepped down that they went with Stephen Colbert instead of Stewart.
Yeah.
Stewart is, and I like Stephen Colbert a lot, and he's a Northwestern guy, so I'm thrilled for that.
And guys that kind of got going on Stewart's show is Colbert, is the guy you were on Seth Meyers with, John Oliver, and Steve Carell. I mean, these are all guys that,
And Jon Stewart directed a movie last year that got a lot of acclaim, so I think maybe he has his mind set on doing things like that. I watched the announcement. He said that he's got a lot of stuff in his head what he's going to do.
It's not like you're never going to see him again. He's just going to stop doing the show. I did love his line. He said, I'm going to have dinner on a school night with the family because the reports say that it's a lovely family.
They're lovely people.
They're lovely people. Yeah.
I watched it. I don't always watch the Daily Show. Every time I watch it, I like it.
I don't always watch it either, but I'm exactly with you. When I watch it, I like it. And as he said, he thanks everybody for watching and who liked it, and even those who hate watched.
Yeah.
Because that's out there as well. Obviously,
he took something that had no business becoming what it became and made it something. Much bigger than it. Whether you like him or don't like him, I happen to like him. But if you don't like him, that's fine. But as he said last night a lot of people watched because they didn't like him, but he made it into something that people basically had to watch.
I mean, think about it. He basically started that show right around when you and I started.
Yeah.
He's retiring
Look
from
at
it.
him. Yeah, I know. Well, listen, we may not be that far behind him. But that's neither here nor there. The point of it is he took that show over, by the way, remember, from Craig Kilborn.
Yes.
Craig Kilborn left here right when I started ESPN.
Yep. Right.
I was at ESPN for a couple of months, maybe. I don't know what year it was exactly that Kilborn started Daily Show, but I hadn't been here long. I got here in September of '96, and very shortly thereafter, Craig Kilborn left to go do the Daily Show, and then what seemed like very shortly thereafter, he left to go follow Letterman on CBS at 12:30, and Jon Stewart stepped into the Daily Show and took it to a whole other level.
Sure did.
So anyway, a job well done. 96, so it was the same year. So Kilborn and I overlapped. I'm sure he remembers it this way.
Yes, I'm sure he does.
For just a couple of months. Whatever. The point is, a job well done by Jon Stewart. That guy's really talented and really smart and really funny. If you ever get a chance, Google the night that the Kennedy Center honored Bruce Springsteen. Jon Stewart presented him. Like they have someone come up and do like a lengthy description of him. And I don't want to. It's so ridiculously funny that it's amazing. He loves Springsteen, and you got to hear him talk about Springsteen. So he's brilliant. So that's the other thing people were talking about. And then just quickly, this Brian Williams thing.
Wow,
it is just. I sit in absolute stunned silence. I don't even know what to say.
Brian Williams,
to see something like that happen.
One of the most respected newsmen we have out there.
Goes down.
I mean, just again with what
like Mike Tyson in the ring with Buster Douglas. He's on the ground and he's searching for his mouthpiece.
I mean, just with what he did, talking about being in the helicopter that was shot down, and then talking about things that happened from Hurricane Katrina, about dysentery and seeing bodies floating. I mean, just.
Listen, I have a lot of respect for the guy, and I think he does his job very well. But, I mean, I went to journalism school, and one of the first things they teach you in journalism school is when you're talking on the air, you better say things that actually happen.
I was just going to say, you went to journalism school. I did not. Is there an actual credited class where they tell you not to lie?
No, you know what that is? That's one of those, like the old George Costanza. Is that thing frowned upon?
Is that wrong?
Was that wrong?
Because, it's not right to assume. No, you can't assume.
That's when you can't assume. So
but if you don't know, he has been suspended without pay for 6 months. We keep talking about this administrative leave thing, with pay, without pay. He's gone for 6 months without pay, and we'll see what happens after that. I mean, that was another stunning story.
I think that Alex Rodriguez walked into the offices of the Yankees and sang this song yesterday.
You think they all held hands and sang this one together?
Listen, here's what the bottom line of it is. By now you probably heard the story. A-Rod went in and did what he had to do at some point, and go in and apologize to the Yankees for the complete horses behind he made of himself.
Sorry for everything.
Literally everything. Yeah. Up to and including accusing you, knowing that it wasn't true, accusing you of all sorts of horrible things
suing
you did to me, suing the Yankees, throwing their team doctors under the bus, suing literally everybody. In a 90-minute meeting at Yankee Stadium yesterday, A-Rod apologized to Yankees owner Hal Steinbrenner and team executives for his suspension, for his use of performance-enhancing drugs, and the aggressive nature by which he attempted to defend himself.
And the old "I'm going to sue everybody" tactic.
That would be the understatement of the century. That really may go down as the worst legal advice that anyone has ever gotten, ever. For A-Rod to come out the way he did and attack everyone. He left himself a man completely on an island.
What are you going to do? I'm going to sue. Who are you suing? Everybody.
Everybody. He had to. The Yankees made it known that he had to make up for his behavior, which included suing Major League Baseball, suing the Yankees team doctor, questioning the Yankees' integrity in the biogenesis case. Again, the worst advice anyone has ever gotten in maybe of all time. The Yankees, according to our Andrew Marchand, made it clear that they plan to dispute his home run bonuses. Now, this remains the interesting part of this story to me. Because, look, at the end of the day, A-Rod wins. The day he shows up at spring training and just keeps showing up. They owe him $60 million. The worst thing they can do to him is cut him and give him $60 million. If the worst thing that can happen to you is getting $60 million, you've won. Now it's just a question of how much you win by. Now, I think he wants to continue playing.
I think he does as well. Your legacy is destroyed.
No matter what happens.
That's gone. Exactly right. No matter what happens, you are in a complete no-win situation. So, you know what? Over the next 3 years, you got $60 million coming, unless they want to end it before that, which I'm with you. Then you want to talk about a real win.
Now, he can make a total of $30 million extra dollars if he reaches a variety of home run milestones. You may recall back when they did this deal, they put in a bunch of bonuses based upon the time that he was going to be hitting big home runs. The one that he would pass Willie Mays, the one that he would hit 700, I believe, when he would pass Babe Ruth, pass Hank Aaron, and then ultimately pass Barry Bonds.
Go back to what this was to a point, at least in our careers, where we're sitting on David Letterman, and I'm saying that A-Rod is going to be the most revered person, not reviled, revered person in baseball.
Can we find that, guys? That was us on Letterman.
As soon as he passes Barry Bonds, the hated Barry Bonds for what he did, when A-Rod passes him, he's going to be up on everybody's shoulders, cheered as he passes all these home run marks and then finally passes Bonds. We're going to have a true champion.
And in so doing, but now spin that towards what the Yankees were giving him bonuses for. While that was happening, think of all the extra people who were going to be in the ballpark to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Think of all the extra people who are going to be watching TV on the Yes Network
Think of what that ball would have been worth.
Right. Now, the ball wouldn't have been worth anything to the Yankees.
Right.
Necessarily. But the Yankees would have made all this extra money based upon A-Rod catching all these milestones. Now, I ask you, if A-Rod now he may not get there. What does he have? 654 home runs.
And again, there's different. There were what, 5, 6 different.
I believe there are 5. You're right. 5 separate home run milestones.
5 separate milestones.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, if I had to bet on it right now, I would bet he won't catch Babe Ruth. I would bet he will not get to 714 or 715, which would surpass Ruth. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, he does. Will anyone be excited about that? Or people going to flock to the ballpark to see that? I think television ratings going to go through the roof?
I think there will be those watching out of curiosity, but it will be nothing like basically when Bonds would do it, or you keep going back to the Sosa-McGuire home run races. That was must-see TV. That was break in to whatever you were watching when they were at bat television. It's never going to be that again. Not for the big number like that, because of the stigma on the home run record now. So that's not going to happen again. But I think people are going to be curious, certainly. And I think they're going to want to watch it only to say, that doesn't matter, he cheated. But I still think there's a curiosity in seeing it.
But it certainly won't be what it otherwise would have been, and it will not be nearly the windfall to the Yankees that they were expecting.
Just what you're saying there. The value of it has been just destroyed.
So they basically looked him in the eye and said, we want you to know we're going after that $30 million.
They're going to go after it, and I think they're going to lose.
I do, too.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get that.
But I don't think they're going to get it either. And on some level, I mean, it serves them right. I mean, it was a bad deal from the very beginning. People could see it coming. Remember, that was when A-Rod opted out. During the World Series,
right.
Everybody was screaming and yelling at him.
Yeah.
Brian Cashman wanted nothing to do with bringing him back, and he called Hank Steinbrenner, as I recall the story, and sort of worked out a deal on his own when he found out no one else out there was willing to give him $300 million. So the Yankees did, including all of these bonuses. So I don't know where that thing is going to go. I do believe that when the season begins, Alex Rodriguez will be on the field for the Yankees.
I agree with that.
We'll just sort of let the whole thing play out.
I agree with it. Well, there's this whole piece of the pie. And then there's actual baseball for a guy that missed the entire last season. He's had his injuries. Certainly the body's starting to break down. He's up there in age of just what he's going to do on the field. And for the most part, it seems he's going to sit in the dugout until it's his turn to walk up to the plate and DH. And we'll see where it goes from there or how he looks. Because for me, all this stuff off the field, okay, whatever. But at the end of the day, this is an athlete who's going to try and play a sport. So I am very interested to see where he is in that regard, physically, how he can play, in the field, how he's going to hit, what his worth in that sense is going to be to the team.
All right, so we'll see where that thing goes. Again, we're going to continue to take all morning long using the hashtag greatest upset your thoughts on what was the greatest upset ever on this, the 25th anniversary of Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. Plus, again, I have it up at ESPN Greeny. Did I or did I not look like Jon Stewart once upon a time?
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Changing plans from what we were planning on doing here, as we have just received what I think is fairly significant breaking news. Dateline South Williamsport, Pennsylvania. After an extensive review of the operations of Jackie Robinson West Little League and Illinois District 4, that was the Little League team representing Chicago that won the U.S. Championship this past year in the Little League World Series. The Little League International Charter Tournament Committee has determined that the Jackie Robinson West Little League and Illinois District 4 administrator knowingly violated Little League International rules and regulations by placing players on their team who did not qualify to play because they lived outside of the team's boundaries. Thus, the committee has decided to vacate the league's wins from the 2014 Little League Baseball International Tournament, including its Great Lakes Regional and U.S. Championships, and suspend the team manager from Little League activity. The Illinois District 4 administrator also has been removed from his position. Jackie Robinson West Little League has been placed on probation with its tournament privileges suspended until such a time that new leadership in the positions of president and treasurer and et cetera can be elected and appointed, and the league is fully compliant with all of the regulations. They found that Jackie Robinson West Little League used a falsified boundary map for their 2014 tournament, and that Jackie Robinson West Little League officials met with other leagues in Illinois District 4 to try to get the territory they wrongfully claimed was theirs for their 2014 tournament. So the point is they have vacated Jackie Robinson, the Chicago team, the first, I believe it was the first team ever made up exclusively of African-American kids to win
this was a huge
the Little League World Series in the U.S.
It's a huge story. It looks like Las Vegas will get the U.S. title now. That's who this team beat in the finals. Again, they
beat Monet Davis's Philadelphia team in the semis, if I remember correctly.
And they went on to lose. South Korea won the Little League World Series.
But they won the American chance.
So Las Vegas will, I would imagine, is going to fill that slot. Listen, this is pretty easy. And this, let's not kid ourselves, this happens. And not just in Little League Baseball. You hear about this in high schools, high school sports where players live outside of the district and somehow they either falsify an address or somehow get them into that school and play on that team. And basically that's what this is. Understand the difference of Little League to a travel team to basketball, AAU. Basketball, AAU, you can take kids from basically anywhere. Your son plays on it. My son plays on it. Kids got together from all different cities. Travel teams in baseball, I know my kids played on as well. You basically are making an all-star team from an area and going out and playing other teams. Little League is a boundary. You have boundaries that you can't go outside of to get your players, and that's basically what they did. What they're being,
what they've now been, for lack of a better word, convicted of.
Yeah, that they went outside their area to get their players to make a better team to get a competitive advantage. That's how.
My recollection of these issues with Little League teams in the past has been that the kids were too old.
It's been age.
We've seen that. Boundaries.
What was that? What was the kid's name? Danny Almonte?
Yes, was the Rolando Paulino Little League team from the Bronx in 2001.
Right.
This is the third time in the 68-year history of the Little League Baseball World Series that punitive actions have led to vacating wins from a league. It happened in 1992 with a team from the Philippines, Zamboanga, Philippine City Little League, and then in 2001 with Rolando Paulino Little League from the Bronx. That's the one that you're talking about. Here is the rest of the story. By default, the 2014 championships vacated by the Jackie Robinson team will be given to the other finalists. So the Las Vegas team, the Mountain Ridge Little League team, is now the 2014 U.S. Little League Baseball World Series champs. And then they've given some of the other titles that Chicago won along the way to the teams that they beat in the finals. So there you have it, saying that they knowingly violated Little League international rules. And so that Chicago team, that Jackie Robinson team, that so many people got so excited about.
What a great story. I mean, it was a great story. Got so much publicity, including the President of the United States. And now it turns out that they had illegal players on the team. So a shame. You know, listen, we've talked about this at the pro level of cutting corners, of crossing the line a bit for the sake of winning. And how far does it go down to? Well, here you go. You know, Little League of going outside your boundary. As I said, this isn't new to, Little League, obviously, but as I mentioned, high school sports to get players somehow, some way in your region, in your district to play for your teams. Sometimes it's renting an apartment to have the family live there or to make sure the kid has an address there. It's things that are outside the rules to try and get that done. So this isn't the first or the last time it's going to happen, but you know, along the lines of when we kind of talk about the pro side of it, kind of poo-pooing a little bit, it's akin to running a stop sign, and people say, you know what, it has an effect. And there are going to be those that say, see, you cut corners there, it leaks on down to the I want to win so badly, how far are you willing to go? And at what age are you willing to start doing this? Now, listen, when you're doing this isn't, an 11 and 12-year-old kid going up to the coach and saying, hey, Jimmy over in this region that's outside of here, we need this kid on our team. Let's break the rules and do it. This is on the coaches. This is on the adults in this situation who are making the conscious decision to go outside of their region and try and pull a fast one. So it's again,
it's a shame.
At what cost do you go for the win?
Look, it makes you sad on some level, right? I mean, here's Little League Baseball.
Yeah.
This goes to show you the importance of just how competitive we are about everything in sports, starting at the absolute lowest levels. I mean, what is a lower level? It is the lowest level from an age standpoint of seriously competitive sports that we know of. Right, I know kids start younger than that in
T-ball and all that,
but you're not seeing it.
Right.
I mean, of all the things that we follow, the stuff that ever winds up getting any real coverage.
And we're the ones putting it out. ESPN, we've put the World Series, the Little League World Series, on the map.
Yeah.
With televising it. So.
Well, it's been on the map longer than we've televised it, but yes,
you know what I mean.
All of a sudden, different level.
When we're putting it on TV, a whole bunch. Yeah.
And a lot of people are critical of that, but I don't think for this reason. I think there are people who are critical of it because they believe that people
they're starting to cycle a little early with these,
and that you're seeing these kids in this moments of pressure.
Plus, what are these kids? The top kids there. What does it do for that? Where does that mentality go going forward? We talk about on the pedestal early on. Does it put them up there too early? That they become this national treasure too early as well. So there are critics of it as well. But this is the coach. This is the administration. These are adults that are knowingly, trying to get that competitive advantage to get the win.
So there you go. Vacated all the way across. They're no longer the U.S. champs. The team from Las Vegas is now the U.S. Little League World Series champions.
Mike and Mike.
We've read the story, we've seen the release, but you certainly can provide a good deal more insight into this. What are you hearing this morning, and what are the ramifications of this?
Well, I think what happened, is you have adults, acting like children. And ultimately what they did was they took boundaries, and imagine the towns you guys both lived in and stretching into neighboring towns. They redistricted for their own purposes to get a couple more players. At the time that it happened, and even after the tournament right away, nobody said anything, which is the sort of $1 billion question. We raised it. But then subsequently, when the Jackie Robinson West folks went back to those towns and said, look, we understand we did this, but hey, this is such a great story. Let's just leave it alone. Those towns said, no, we're not just leaving it alone. Or that part of that district said, no, we're not going to leave it alone, and it blew up. And obviously what happened during the summer was between Monet Davis and this team, it became absolutely global. I mean, literally global. The all-black team from Chicago ended up going to the White House. They performed at Major League Baseball games, throwing out first pitches, and it was such a cool story. The kid led off the game with 3 home runs, or had 3 home runs in a game, and now you find that after last year's failure, this year they needed to add a few players, and they figured out a way to do it, and they did it illegally. So it does speak to it speaks to adults' sort of selfishness in all this, and why a story like Rhode Island was such a positive story. And Little League wasn't, to Little League's credit, they're not going to allow something like that to go on, even months later. If it can be fixed or corrected, it's fixed and corrected.
Absolutely. And while we've seen a couple of issues, controversies like this in the Little League, and this one obviously being the latest, Rav, we were kind of used to our pro sports and even certainly to a point our college sports being jaded a bit. What does it do now to the 11 and 12-year-olds in Little League Baseball? Are we starting to think that as well?
Well, I mean, this is the third time they've taken or vacated victories. They did it in when Sean Burrows was playing. His California team was beaten by a Philippines team. They took that Philippines victory away. We all know about Danny Almonte, or many of us, about a kid that was actually 14 when he claimed he was 12. And now this. I mean, the great part and the saving grace is it seems to be it's a very isolated situation. And Little League does have all sorts of checks and balances within the system to prevent things like this from happening. Ultimately, the district administrator in Indianapolis, the overall guy in Indianapolis, signed off on it. And it was really in part because of a relationship that they had this Jackie Robinson West Little League team going back 20 years. So you don't want to sit there and say it's one of those that slipped through the cracks, because ultimately it got caught in a crack. But it does take a great deal of effort to pull something like this off with cooperation throughout the process, and they have it. But between the popularity of Monet Davis and what that Chicago team did, it certainly feels a lot bigger. I guess we should be, in some weird way, grateful they didn't win the whole thing. That would feel almost worse. But this is the United States champion. They beat Las Vegas, a team that was probably as good, if not better, on the field, but it didn't work for them that day. And you feel for the region they come out of. You feel for the Little League that they play in through the summer. They beat other teams with players who shouldn't have been on the team.
Yeah, they violate. By the way, they vacate all of that. So
all of that.
What we'll pay attention to, Ravi, is the fact that they vacate the U.S. championship. As I read through the release here, they actually vacate all the wins that they had in the championship games of all of the different tournaments they had to play through to get there, and all those other teams wind up being named the champions. Yeah,
and the sad part, Greeny and Mike, is the idea that the kids, are in a lot of ways victimized by this. It's be ridiculous to put them in a position where they should say, no, we don't want to add these three players, because I'm sure that they were led to believe on some level that this was okay, that we redistricted and we're good with these guys now being with us, so let's go get them. To put that on a 12 and 11-year-old to make a decision, take a stand against adults is not going to happen. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, what was found was that they knowingly violated the rules by placing those players on their team, and so all the people suspended are adults and obviously not the kids. It's great perspective from our friend Karl Ravech. Ravi, thank you very much. We appreciate it. See you soon.
All right, guys.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
I remember exactly where I was sitting 25 years ago today when Jim Lampley made that call of what is, I think, the greatest upset in boxing history and one of the greatest upsets in the history of sport. And when we wanted to get some boxing perspective, you don't usually go to the MLB Network. But my friend Brian Kenny, our friend Brian Kenny, of course, was our colleague here at ESPN for years. Now at the MLB Network and Showtime Championship Boxing, is about as good on boxing as anybody we know. And it's our pleasure to welcome Brian back on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. How are you, BK?
Greeny, good. It's good to talk to you, Mike. Great to talk to you both.
It's great to talk to you. Now, on that call, I noticed Lampley says, let's go ahead and call it the greatest upset in the history of heavyweight championship boxing. Is that the biggest upset in boxing history, period?
Yeah, it is. It's the biggest thing. There's two others that even recently come to mind that I think people remember. I don't have to go back like Bert Sugar and go back to Louis Firpo or anything like that. But even George Foreman knocking out Michael Moorer was, I think, the most stunning thing that I've seen in boxing over the last, 30 years. And also, don't forget, Antonio Tarver knocking out Roy Jones with one shot, I think is up there. That said, at the time, Tyson's invincibility was just at an all-time high, his seeming invincibility. So I think that's what made it so stunning, even though looking back, you can see just how great Buster Douglas was for at least that one night.
Well, let's go to that and paint the picture even a little more than that. Mike Tyson at that time of that fight was 37-0 with 33 knockouts, but you watched to see how bad he was going to beat somebody. So go a little further with the invincibility of Mike Tyson and just what he was at that time.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you brought it up, Mike, because I think people now do the shorthand of history. Everyone does this. It becomes, you forget the little nuances in the middle. And you have to remember that it wasn't that Tyson was a bully and people were intimidated, and until someone stood up to him, he was going to beat them up. No, he was great. He was fast. He was powerful. He could knock out with any shot from either hand. And at that time, you have to remember, he had just fired Kevin Rooney after he beat Michael Spinks. He was with Ruth and Robin and Don King. His personal life was a wreck at that point. But he was still winning, so he didn't see the problems with it. He went and fought Frank Bruno, knocked him out, and then fought Carl the Truth Williams, knocked him out in one round. So even if his personal life was a wreck and he wasn't training as hard, no one really knew that at the time. You could still see him dominant in the ring. So when he went to fight Buster Douglas, we didn't know his whole foundation had been eroding.
Mike and Brian Kenny, MLB Network and Showtime Championship Boxing. Has been the host of Showtime Championship Boxing the last 2 years. So when we're putting this in context today, and we're asking our listeners on Twitter and elsewhere to suggest what were the greatest upsets they ever remember, does this go on that list? I mean, the Miracle on Ice, I think, because of its emotional significance to people in this country, will be number one, and everything else is sort of battling for number two. But is this something, the magnitude of this upset, you think that belongs in that discussion with the genuinely greatest upsets that there have been in sports?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing. It's funny. I was watching the 30 for 30 the other night, and just being reminded that the Soviet team had scored 17 on Holland early in the tournament. 17 in hockey. They beat the U.S. by 10-3 the week before. So nothing beats that. But Bert Sugar had told me a number of times. We did the classic ringside series, and Bert had told me a number of times that there were no odds even on the fight. The 42-1 didn't even happen. You couldn't get odds on it.
Mike and Brian Kenny, who was with us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. The new Subway Simple 6 menu, 6 subs, 6 meals, $6 every day. Subway, eat fresh. Quickly, Brian, while I have you, and Brian is the host of MLB Network's MLB Now, 2 o'clock Eastern in the afternoon. Top 10 right now this Thursday at 9 o'clock Eastern time, gearing up for pitchers and catchers. The baseball story yesterday was A-Rod going in and apologizing to the Yankees and beginning to build whatever bridge he possibly can back with the organization and back with baseball in advance of spring training. What is your best guess of where this whole A-Rod situation is going to play itself out?
He'll probably just end up being a mediocre player. He could probably still get on base decently. He has decent on-base skills. He's not going to hit for power. He's been out a full year. It goes out with a whimper, not a bang. I think he just goes out quietly, probably tries to be a good teammate, and we'll have to try to remember, like at one point, not all that long ago, this guy was one of the greatest players we've ever seen.
I guess I would ask you this, because I've heard people speculate that the Yankees so desperately don't want him around that they might actually rather take the enormous salary cap, not a salary cap, but the enormous financial hit, because they owe him something in the neighborhood of $60 million, and just send him away. You do believe he will play for them this year?
I do. I know, and there's differing opinions. I know Mike Lowell, who I work with at MLB Network, has said, he doesn't think he'll be out on the field. Different guys have said that I've worked with. But I just think that if he can provide any value, if he can have a 350 on base, that's now worth something. And to go through the trauma of trying to cut him loose or negotiating some sort of deal, it's probably easier just to let him DH. And if he is better than an average player, it's probably worth it for the Yankees just to keep him on. I think at this point we've seen you can't just cut a guy loose. You can't just not pay him. They've thought of that, thought it through, can't do it. And so now I think we've seen they're going to try to move forward. And if he's decent, just above league average, not where he used to be, but just above league average, it's probably worth still having him on the roster.
It's Brian Kenny. Again, you see him on MLB Network's MLB Now, 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time, and also the host of Showtime Championship Boxing the last 2 years. An old friend and old colleague of ours here. Great to hear your voice again, Brian. Thanks.
Good to talk to you guys, too. Take care.
The best of Mike and Mike.
He has made some of the great sports movies of all time. He has a new one coming out called McFarland USA. It is our pleasure to welcome into our studio Academy Award-winning actor, the great Kevin Costner is here with us. How are you, Kevin? Welcome.
I'm good, thank you.
We had an argument here this morning, and so we'll let you settle it since you're Kevin Costner.
Yes,
so
since you, yeah.
We went back and forth over 3 of your sports movies trying to decide which one is the best. Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, and then I have to confess, I raised my hand for Tin Cup, which is a movie I absolutely love.
Yeah.
So I have to believe more people quote Bull Durham to you than anything else, right? When people walk up to you in the street, do people quote Bull Durham to you more than anything else?
Yeah, they do. But, those 3 movies have somehow really separated themselves, and I can't go anywhere without somebody going, hey, Crash, or Roy, Tin Cup. And Field of Dreams, that movie is just kind of a little bit of a miracle. I like to think of it in terms of maybe our generation's It's a Wonderful Life, when you think about that. I mean, just now we heard James, a non-athlete, talking about our sport. It's so funny. Mantle couldn't have written that. The greatest sports writers aren't writing that, and all of a sudden this James Earl Jones character guy that maybe you're not even going to pick on your team defines our sport in such poetry. It's like it was a miracle.
I love that. Listen, I love the comedies and love to laugh, but Field of Dreams gets the hair raising on your arm and just is such a tearjerker. It's fantastic. When you do sports movies, and you have another one coming out this to do with runners that we're going to get to, how much is talked about the authenticity of the sport, making sure it's portrayed the right way?
Well, for me, that's a real big deal because I know I'm going to get hammered by guys that go, hey, I'm sorry, Shoeless Joe hit left, and he's hitting right. And I bring that to the director's attention. I said, this isn't going to work. And he was kind of a non-athlete. He goes, it's going to be fine. I said, for you. It's going to be fine for me because the guys are going to come to me, I had Rod Dato on the bench with me, and Augie Garrido and for Love of the Game and these guys, and they just go, and so I knew I was going to take a beating. Like, well, I'll tell you what's important to me. I like sports so much. I wouldn't do a hockey movie because I can't give it that thing that happens that an athlete does. And so when it comes to a sport, I know how particular we are. I mean, I can cuss the sport, but you can't. I mean, that's the way we are, When I was making for Love of the Game, there was this moment, there was some vulgarity, and both the franchise, I go, well, we're not sure about that. I go, oh, really? You're not?
Really?
You guys aren't sure about that? And it was only because I had made these other sports movies. I said, this is going to be okay, guys, because I said, the thing that's great about our sport is the vulgarity. It is the poetry, and they go together.
Mike and the great Kevin Costner in our studio. A lot of others. Draft Day is a movie that my kids absolutely love, where you play the football coach and you're the general manager and you pull off the miracle deals on draft day and all that kind of stuff for the love of the game. So obviously you love sports. And then the non-sports movies. Of the movies that get quoted to you, is The Untouchables number one? Is that? I'm just trying to think through all of your movies. That's a movie that there are so many quotes that jump out of immediately. Is that one people talk about?
Well, they do, but that's the kind of the thing that I'm happiest about, that my career hasn't really drilled down to a single movie, because someone will come to me, talk about JFK, or they'll talk about the Westerns, Open Range, or early movies, Fandango and No Way Out.
Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, Dances with Wolves. And so it's this movie I just made, Black or White, has some, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see that, but there's stuff in there that I think you probably wish you'd say in your life. That's what makes that movie really interesting. So, movies, when you make them, they always have one chance, and that is to live forever. And it has to do with what you're going to do. What are the great choices you make in order to have a film that can travel through time, like A Field of Dreams?
I always wonder, with stars of your stature, when you do a movie, how many do you turn down before you do a movie? What's like a batting average?
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and I don't go looking for sports movies. I mean, I didn't go looking for McFarlane. McFarlane found me. In fact, I remember reading about this about 15 years ago in Sports Illustrated. Those great articles and McFarlane. And what was interesting, I played McFarlane in high school. I lived up in the Central Valley for a year. It was my best year in school, and I was on the baseball team. And we played this little farm town, and then lo and behold, my life goes the way it goes. This thing I read in Sports Illustrated, great story, and now a movie. And I thought, wow, this thing came to me, cross country, which I know like zero. I mean, most athletes I know don't want to run.
Are you kidding?
Most guys I really know, in fact, even guys saying, you know what, I'm not even going to be a rollout quarterback. I'm going to drop back. I don't want to run.
Couldn't agree more. As a former D lineman, anything over 40 yards is distance. So
it really is.
Country is tough to relate.
No, it is, and I don't relate to it. But what happened was this little community, and that's the beauty of our sports is, the thing that happens, that really happens, it's true. And this community had zero going for it. Migrant farm workers, their parents just working unbelievable hours to just make life better for their kids, which, by the way, is more American than apple pie. Parents working to make their lives better for their kids. These kids get a goal. Somebody puts something in front of them. And what happens? They achieve beyond their expectations. They win 9 state championships. So it's like sports. I mean, people out there going, why is sports on 24 hours a day? Because it actually does mean something in some way.
McFarland USA is the movie, again, based on the 1987 true story. And Kevin Costner plays the coach of this cross-country team that, as you mentioned, in a small California town, transforms a team of athletes into championship contenders. So when we talk about sports, people, when they ask me, why we love sports so much and why they're so popular. I say, well, look at what's on television now. It's all this reality TV, but reality TV isn't really reality. People don't usually get dropped off on desert islands and have to figure out how to play games and have challenges. Sports is really real reality, right?
Yeah.
That's the drama that we try to create with reality television is created on a daily basis within these games that we play.
No, if you think the last play of the Super Bowl is over, you leave because they're sitting on the 1 yard line because you're so angry. You missed the last play. You just missed the game because there is drama in our game. I mean, and I watch baseball all year, right? I don't watch it anymore during the year because when I was young, I would do it. All the Sports Illustrated stuff was on my wall. But as you get older, you can't watch the entire season. But I do watch the playoffs. And when the World Series comes, something never fails to happen. I see a play that I've never seen before in my life. A referee, the ump gets a call that he's never had to call in his life. And I don't know why that is. And am I the only one that has that impression that when I watch that, there's something you never ever see? And yet you play and you think, I've seen everything. But it's not true. When the stakes are the greatest, something happens. It had happened in our Super Bowl. People are back and forth. I love that it happened that way.
I always thought, and we talked to, and it seems that way, is actors want to be athletes, and athletes all want to be entertainers. So if you could have a Hall of Fame athletic career, would it be baseball? Is that your sport, or would it be something in a different?
Golf.
Yeah,
you had a good-looking golf swing.
Yeah, you did.
I'll tell you that.
I had a little knockdown shot. Out there in those Texas winds.
Play it up.
I would have loved to have played baseball, but don't forget I pitched a perfect game in Yankee Stadium, and Steinbrenner, it was really funny when we were going to make this thing. It was like he wasn't going to let us do the movie. And I said, why? He said, would the Yankees lose in the thing? And there's something about him that I love that. It's like he has so much pride that, no, I'm not going to have my guys lose even if it's a good movie. And I know, Kevin, I like you, but no. And I really had to think on my feet. And I said, George, the game doesn't mean anything. You've already clinched. I'm playing a meaningless game. There's 2 more games. You guys are going on to the playoffs. And he goes, really? I said, yeah, that's exactly, and I'm thinking, man, now I've got some good stuff. I'm going, yeah, the Tigers aren't going anywhere. You guys are going to the playoffs. You've already clinched. This game's a no-nothing. And he gets into his zone and pitches himself a perfect game, and he goes, we've clinched. Yes. Okay, Kevin. That's a great story. And he gave me a ring to this day, and I will never wear it. He gave me a World Series ring that they'd won that year, and I just... I thought, number one, George, you shouldn't be doing that. Mm-hmm. But I didn't, and I put it away. So, but he's a big gesture guy. You probably, other people have been on the bad end of that, and other people on there, but he's a big emotional, big gesture person.
It's cool that I respect you not wearing it, though. I
would never wear it.
That's from the movie For the Love of the Game. Again, the new movie is McFarland USA, in theaters February 20th across the country with the great Kevin Costner. It's such a pleasure to have you here. We're both huge fans. It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you. Thanks for coming by.
Appreciate it.
This has been the Best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The Best of Mike and Mike.